Hi folks, today we're going to talk about brushes and about cleaning brushes. I've seen several posts lately where people have been questioning about how to clean your brushes, and maybe this video will help you a little bit. So what we're going to talk about first is the brushes that you can buy. Now obviously, if you're a Bob Ross fan, you probably have bought several of his kinds of brushes. I bought this kit not only once but twice, because I got a good deal on it, and I thought that it was just a good price for the brushes. When you try to buy them separate, sometimes they're very costly. So this kit, of course, you get the 2-inch brush, the 1-inch brush, the knife, the number 6 fan brush, and the script liner brush, along with the smaller tubes of paint, which don't last very long. But obviously, the good deal is in getting the original Bob Ross brushes. So, looking at the brushes that I have, you can see that I have two each of the 2-inch, the 1-inch, and then I have some other ones that I bought separate. The fan brushes, the round brushes, the half-size round brushes. I've also got a couple Wilson Bickford brushes. We'll talk about them here in just a second. So, what we want to focus on today is the cleaning of brushes. So I've had a lot of people say that you shouldn't use soap and water, that you shouldn't use anything other than odorless paint thinner or maybe baby oil. I've seen people say that too. Well, I can tell you that the only thing I have ever used is odorless paint thinner. Now, many of you have probably seen these buckets, or maybe several of you have these buckets. This is the Bob Ross bucket cleaning kit. It comes with the screen, of course. If you don't have the money to get the bucket, you can always use a butter bowl. Nothing wrong with that. Here's one thing that I did. Here's a little tip. Now, when you clean your brushes and you keep your thinner in here, they do have a lid you can put on them, and you can keep your thinner for quite a while. The solid particles will settle into the bottom and keep the other thinner on top relatively clean. However, what I do sometimes is I bought 2 of those screens, and I took this one and I cut it in half and cut the bottom part off of it. That allows me to still be able to use the screen, but I don't have to have quite as much thinner in the bucket. I can reduce the amount of thinner that I use. As you all know, some of the thinners can get very expensive. Odorless thinner is the way that you need to go, of course. You can buy, there's several different brands. The Bob Ross brand, I think there's a Mona Lisa. I use regular, just house odorless paint thinner, and that's all that I've ever used. I've never had any of the other ones, the more expensive ones. So back to our brushes. So you would take a 2-inch brush, and when there's thinner in this, you'll just scrub. Make sure your thinner is above the screen. Scrub the brushes against the screen, and that helps clean them up. Wipe it. Wipe the excess off. You might have a trash can. You can shake off the excess in a trash can. And then, of course, obviously, is beating the devil out of it. Now, you can go right into it and just beat the devil out of it just like that. If you're in a well-ventilated space, you probably won't have to worry about anything. I know people are worried about the fumes and the toxicity of them. One thing that I did was I made my own brush beater rack. And what this is underneath this filter, this is just an old furnace filter cut up, there is a big metal fan. And with the air direction pointing that way, pointing down, so it sucks the air through, down, and goes underneath. And you can just beat them against the rack just like so. And it helps to pull a lot of those vapors and a lot of the parts that are coming off of the thinner down away. This helps them keep it more ventilated as well. So that's one thing you can do. And then go back and beat the devil out of it again. After which, you're still going to see some wetness in your brush. You could wipe it on your hand or on something, and you can see that you're not going to get it all out. After that, I just wipe it again on a paper towel. And then that brush is clean and dry. Now that is all that I've ever done. And like I said, I bought 2 of these kits. The first kit I bought in 2013, so almost 8 years ago. And as you can see, these brushes are still in relatively good condition. I can't remember which one it was I got first, but these brushes are still in good condition. And these are the Bob Ross signature brushes. As you can see, this brush is still in good condition. This one is still in pretty good condition. You will have a little bit of the residual effects of the paint or the thin or whatever. Sometimes it will stick to them. As you see this fan brush, it looks a little bit thicker than new ones. It looks like it's a little bit different shape. Still works though. Nothing wrong with that. The bristles are still soft. The smaller fan brush, it's the same way. This is a Wilson Bickford fan brush. It works just fine too. These are obviously new fan brushes, and I haven't used them yet because the old fan brushes still seem to work rather well. So I will continue to use these until I think they're not working very well or creating the effects I need to create. And then I'll start with my new ones. Full-size round brush. Filbert brush. They're all still nice and soft. Here's something else I want to show you. This is a half-size round brush. And what I did was I used it to paint one day. And I laid it over on the side, and I forgot about it for several weeks. I didn't rinse it out. I didn't wash it. I just forgot to wash it. When I came back out and I realized what I did, there was all kinds of dried, oily paint in this. And I thought, well, how am I going to get that out of there now? Thinner will work if the paint is still wet. But if it's dried, it's a little different. It's a little bit harder to get out. And I thought, well, if I ruin the brush, I just ruin the brush. I did buy another new one anyway. Haven't used it yet, but I bought one. I took this brush with that old paint in it in the house. I used whatever dish soap my wife had sitting by the sink, and I just scrubbed it, and I put it in a bowl, and I just scrubbed it and scrubbed the bristles and scrubbed the pan and just tried to get everything that I could off of this. Now, when it was wet, and after I rinsed it out, it looked like a mess. The bristles were sticking all out. I thought, well, I ruined that one. I'll never be able to use that one again. But after it dried, as you can see, it still maintained pretty good form and a pretty good shape. The bristles are still soft. Other than the tips of them being black, I could still use that brush just as I could this new one. It still maintains the shape. So I don't know if I've seen some people have brushes that they got wet, that they try to use soap and water, and it looks like it really deformed them. Maybe just let them dry really well. See if you can get the shape back in them. This is another Wilson Bickford brush that I use if I need a little flat brush. As for the liner brushes, this is the first Bob Ross liner brush that I ever got in the first kit. I did use it quite a bit. This is the second one that I've got, as you can see. I haven't really used that one very much. The reason is I bought this one here. I can't remember where I got this one at. Maybe Hobby Lobby or Michael's. This is my go-to liner. I love this one. It makes exactly what kind of branches I need to make. Sticks. Signature. Does really well. Also, here's some other brushes. I've also got a set of the Wilson Bickford brushes. And to be honest with you, I never have used them yet. Mom always told me, waste not, want not. So as long as these brushes are still doing fine, I'm going to continue to use these, maybe until I can't use them no more. Then I'll break out some of these other brushes. The ones that I have used, the few that I have used of Wilson Bickford, they're just fabulous. They're great brushes. Here's another brush. It's more along the lines of a, kind of like a chip brush. And I started thinking about these, and I know a lot of people use these daily to make their paintings to make grass effects and things like that. And you can use chip brushes, and you can buy them cheap, and you can use them, and they do just fine. So here's an idea. Here's your tip of the day, folks. This is the Bob Ross oval brush. 1-inch oval brush. As you can see, the end of it is round. I have used it some. I haven't used it a whole lot, but I do like the effects that it makes. It gives you a nice round effect. But here's something you can do. If you can't afford one of those, they can be very expensive. As I said, get you some cheap brushes. I think these I bought off of maybe Jerry's Artorama or Dick Blick. I can't remember. But these are just some thinner, cheap brushes. They're still just soft, but they're cheap. So here's something else you can do with chip brushes. If you want, you can use a brush like that, or you can get these old brown, tan chip brushes cheap. You can buy them online cheap. You can get them at the hardware store cheap. And just cut an oval out of it. Now, it's not going to be quite as thick as the Bob Ross brush, so you won't get maybe quite the same effects. But as opposed to, I don't know how much these oval brushes are, $20 compared to 50 cents. Maybe that's what these are. Give these a try. I think that you'll like them. And you can cut, if you decided that you want an angle on one, this is the Wilson Bickford, but if you want to make an angle, you can cut these just the same and just cut them right off to make an angle. And there's nothing wrong with that. Aside from that, you'll have old brushes that will seem like they don't look exactly like when you bought them brand new. Maybe they won't, maybe they're not. But some of the greatest effects that I've ever got is from using old brushes. Now, I'm a cheap painter. I can't afford to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on fancy brushes and high dollar things. I just paint for the enjoyment of it. Here is a cheap brush I got from, I think, Hobby Lobby. And it just said gesso brush. And it was like, I don't know, a couple dollars. And I thought, well, I'll try that. I don't know if it'll work. Maybe it won't work. I haven't tried it yet, but just to give some little different effects, maybe it will work. Try to find some cheap brushes if you can. Eventually, you might have to go to the Bob Ross brushes or the Wilson Bickford brushes. Other people sell brushes as well. You might have to go to them to get this kind of effects that you're wanting. But above all, I have found that in oil painting, the natural bristle brushes are the best, of course. They are stiff and firm, but they are soft on the end to touch, and that's exactly what you want when you're making trees and bushes. So, folks, that's my little tips for the day on brush cleaning. And like I said, I have been painting for about 7 or 8 years. When I bought my first Bob Ross brush kit, they still work very well. I have painted quite a few paintings, and I use the same brushes. So using straight paint thinner and nothing else is just fine for cleaning brushes. So as we say here, happy painting and have a good day.